Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei hate Rias and love Koneko's mother part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the JCT1345 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Issei was violently awakened from his sleep by the lack of oxygen and the smell of smoke. Ack. Issei was attempting to cough up a lung full of smoke. What's going on? Mom? Dad? Issei knew what was going on even though he wasn't, but 7 years old he knew that his house was burning down. He ran up to his door and grabbed at the knob, but it was too hot and burned his hand. He then began ramming his body into the door in an attempt to knock it down, but his attempt was fruitless. He kept at it however, until his vision began to cloud due to a lack of oxygen. Issei was prepared to give up and accept his fate, but he heard a voice. "Damn it, kid." The rather threatening voice said to him. "Do you know how hard it's gonna be to find a new compatible host, and here I thought I was gonna get a good 60 years out of you at least." Issei was confused and even more frightened than before, if that was possible. He did however work up the nerve to speak up to this unknown voice that seemed to be in his head. "Who said that I can't see you? What's going on? Are you gonna help me?" "Calm down, kid, jeez. So many questions at once. As far as if I can help you or not, that's up to you. Look down at your left hand." Issei did what the voice said and saw a green glow emitting from the top of his left hand. "You see that hand? I want it. If you give that to me I can get you out of here alive." Issei nodded to what the mysterious voice said. "Good boy. And as far as who I am, they call me the Red Dragon of Domination." The voice announced, then a red flash of light filled the room, and when Issei looked back down at his left hand, there was a fingerless red metallic gauntlet with a green gem that flashed. "Boost." A voice that rang from the gauntlet sounding a lot like the dragon. "A partner, you may call me Drake." Issei was still utterly confused by the situation he found himself in, even though after that boost he felt amazing. He stood there hesitant. "Don't just stand there. Punch that wall." Issei followed Drake's instruction and struck the wall. The wall began to wobble and shake before it fell, opening Issei's room to the outside world where he made his escape. After Issei escaped his smoke-filled, he took a few deep breaths before making a beeline for the other side of his house. "Partner, what do you think you're doing? You need to rest now. Your body can't take much more." "I have to save my parents," he said with a pant to his voice, showing the fatigue his body was experiencing at the moment. "With your power I can break their wall down and save them." "Partner, that's not a good idea." Drake's words were cut short as the bright green glow emanating from the emerald on Issei's gauntlet and the gauntlet itself vanished into a red light. Issei then dropped to his knees as the stress Drake's power placed on his young body took its toll. Issei was left helpless but to watch his house collapse, sealing the fate of his parents trapped inside. "I'm sorry, partner, but you aren't strong enough to handle more than a few seconds with the power of boost weighing on your body. I tried to warn you." Words of condolence passed through his young ears as he focused on what his partner had said early. "Not strong enough, not strong enough, not strong enough." Drake's words echoed in Issei's head. He was too weak. His parents were dead because he was too weak to save them. He let them down. They were dead and it was his fault. It was as if he himself was the cause of their deaths. Issei let out a roaring scream into the night sky while tears streamed down his eyes. As his cries echoed into the night sky, his left arm once again flashed red and his gauntlet reappeared on his forearm, but this time his fingers were coated in the same material the rest of the gauntlet was made of, and gold spikes protruded near his elbow. "Boost, boost, boost." His gauntlet roared, filling him with power, but he was too distracted by a combination of grief, shock, and pure unadulterated rage. "This host might just have some potential yet," Drake said to himself as he let his new partner vent his frustrations. End of flashback. Issei's POV. "After the death of my parents, I moved in with my wealthy grandparents in Kyoto, where I attended school all the way to my first year of high school. At my old school I was part of both the Jiu-Jitsu and Taekwondo clubs where I attempted to train my body into a vessel that can support Drake's awesome power, but I also found myself developing a love for combat, not rivaling the hidden love I had for breasts, but a powerful love nonetheless. I unfortunately in all my years of club activities. Since awakening Drake's power I have yet to be in a fight that challenges me. As a result I elected not to join one of the clubs at my new school, fearing the same outcome here, but Drake promised me that one day I would be in for the fight of my life against the wielder of the vanishing dragon." Back to the topic of why I was transferred here, my grandmother worried that because I didn't really have a best friend back in Kyoto, that the tragedy of losing my parents was making me an antisocial person. It's true that my parents' death has affected me, but the reason that I had no friends was that it was hard to relate to people. I mean, how many orphan dragon monsters are there in your school? But I have a pair of friends now whom I share a common interest with. They may be a bit less reserved about their passions than I. Unfortunately, I have been monologuing and kinda spacing out. What am I doing? Hi do. A pink-haired girl with an angry scowl and what appeared to be a vein popping out of her temple. You insist you're not a pervert like your two loser friends, but this is the third time that we've found you outside the kendo club's changing room. Explain now. Sorry, Kata-san. I was spacing out again, and those two must have brought me here again. I didn't see anything, I swear. Our protagonist answered while rubbing the back of his and giving the most sincere grin he could muster. Huh. Sighed Catus. I believe you, Haidu, honestly. Even if you might be a little perverted, I know you're not as bad as those two. This made Issei breathe a sigh of relief. Unfortunately for you, those so-called friends of yours pissed us off, so we're gonna use these kendo sticks to beat the crap out of you. She said this last part with a smile, but Issei definitely wasn't smiling because he knew they were completely serious. A few moments later, Issei was lying beaten and bruised on the ground as the kendo club gathered their things and began to walk away. Why do you let those idiots put you into situations like this, partner? Issei stood up, wiping himself off before he answered. I don't know. They're not bad people, and they're also the first real friends I've ever had. The final bells of the day rang, and school was dismissed for the day. Issei began his walk home, and the monologuing resumed. As I currently stand, I rank at about a mid-tier, because my balance breaker armor lasts around 20 minutes currently. I unlocked it around a year ago, but I've only ever used it when late to school. I feel as though it's kind of overpowered. I have yet to face anyone who can match up to me in my normal form, so if I try to fight someone with a balance breaker, I have no doubt that a fight would be over in an instant, but flying is incredible. The only problem is the armor doesn't come with a watch, so I'm always afraid to fly a bit too high, and my timer will run out. Issei was coming up on a bridge when he heard a voice call out to him, knocking him out of his trance. Excuse me. Issei turned to find a young girl with black hair and a sizable bust, dressed in a uniform of a nearby school. Excuse me, but it's getting rather late, and I'm afraid someone might attack me if I walk home alone. Could you please walk with me? This was surprised by how sweetly the girl spoke, but being the eloquent gentleman, he quickly gathered himself and answered. Sure. Issei discovered the girl's name was Yuma, and the youths had a grand time talking as our hero escorted the beautiful girl home. Issei was so caught up in the riveting conversation he was having with the young girl that he lost track of where they were. Yuma, are we almost at your place? The girl turned around so that she was no longer facing Issei when she answered. Yeah, Issei, we're exactly where we need to be, but I have one question. Issei was confused, but before he could ask what she meant, he felt a wave of bad energy that he couldn't comprehend, but knew it was bad. He looked back to see if Yuma was okay, but he didn't see the girl he knew. Instead, a girl who resembled Yuma was standing in front of him wearing what appeared to be a black leather bikini and had two crow-like black wings. Could you please die for me? Her voice had changed to become something much more menacing, but Issei wasn't focused on that. Instead, he was distracted by the red spear that this girl had summoned out of nowhere. She hurled the spear at Issei's chest, which would have been an instantaneous kill, but Issei was quick to summon his gauntlet and block the girl's attack, resulting in an explosion. When the smoke cleared, Yuma got a glimpse of Issei's gauntlet. The boosted gear. No way, you were just supposed to be some mid-level sacred gear user. No matter what, I'll kill you anyway. Issei had just about had it. Alright, explains now. Sorry partner, I should have told you she was a fallen angel, but they have a reputation for being total sluts, and I figured you'd get lucky. This prompted a hey from Yuma. Well, I'm at it, I should probably have told you about being fallen by a devil, but this is more important now. I recommend Balance Breaker, being this is your first real fight against a supernatural being. I have no idea what you're talking about, and you can explain later. You said this is a real fight, so there is no way I want it to be over so quickly. I don't need a balance breaker. Issei responded. He then focused his energy into his gauntlet, resulting in boost, 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 boost. Issei charged at the fallen angel and was much too fast for her to dodge, delivering a powerful punch to her stomach. She reeled back and immediately knew she was outmatched power-wise and figured retreat was the best option. She vaulted into the air and propelled herself upwards at amazing speeds, but not fast enough. Issei bent down into a squat, then vaulted up much faster than Yuma could fly. He grabbed her by the wing and threw her back to earth, then landed gracefully near the crater he had created with his throw. He picked the stranger up by one of the straps of her bikini. Alright psycho, you're gonna tell me who you are and what the hell you want with MMH. Before he could finish his sentence, Yuma enveloped him in a deep which left the boy's mind racing at 1,000,000 miles a minute until he focused on a single thought. My chest really hurts. During the time of confusion, Yuma plunged an energy spear into his heart before letting the boy drop. The angel placed a finger on her lip before removing it and turning to Issei with a devilish grin. "Too bad, Issei, that was pretty good," Yuma said, standing over the boy. "Unfortunately you had to die, don't blame me, blame the god that put that dragon inside you. Hahaha." She flew off laughing maniacally, leaving poor Issei to die. "Sorry Drake, I should have listened to you about balance breaker, huh?" thought Issei, lamenting over what he assumed would be his final moments. "I just hope your next partner can finish the job and kick that vanishing dragon guy's ass. It's been fun, but it looks like this is the end of such a long partner." Issei was ready to accept death after saying goodbye to his truest friend, but Drake had other ideas. "Hate to burst your heartfelt farewell, partner, but I don't think this is goodbye quite yet." This might possibly be the most confused Issei had been all night, but he was tired and began to lose consciousness. "Get some sleep, partners, good night." Drake said this as a red-haired figure stood over the bleeding boy with the biggest grin on her face. Issei screamed as he shot up from his bed and launched to his feet. He began to pat himself down, examining his physical condition before coming to a shocking realization. "I'm alive," the boy exclaimed with a bit of confusion before focusing on something else that confused him. "And in my room? In my house. And I'm looking around at his current state of nudity. Well, partner, about that. You see now you're..." Drake's explanation was cut short by a slight groan coming from Issei's bed. Then his sheets began to stir and a red-headed figure sat up in his bed and began to rub her eyes. "Geez, Issei, you're too loud so early in the morning. I'll explain everything later and come back to bed." The intruder turned out to be a young curvaceous red-haired girl with bluish-green eyes and a distinct lack of clothing. Issei's eyes remained locked on the stranger, and not because she wasn't making an attempt to cover herself, but because she looked strangely familiar. After a few moments of Issei staring at the stranger and his company in an attempt to figure out just what exactly was going on, before realizing his own state of nudity. "Ah!" screamed Issei before dropping his hands to cover his privates. This prompted a giggle from his mysterious guest, but her giggle didn't last long as Issei summoned his gauntlet, causing her eyes to widen. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. A mysterious red light covered Issei before an intimidating red armor that matched a boosted gear gauntlet cloaked his whole body, and his face was covered with a helmet that resembled a cross between a medieval knight crossed with a dragon, including two fearsome gold tusks that protruded from his mouth guard. Issei relaxed now that his body was clothed and began to seek some answers at last. "Ah, that's better. Now somebody better tell me what the hell is going on." "Hold on now, Issei, there is no need to be violent. I'll tell you what you want to know, but you need to calm down." The girl held up her hand in attempting to protect herself as the immense power of Issei's balance breaker caused her to shudder a bit. Seeing that the girl was frightened, Issei waved his hands dismissively at the stranger in order to calm her down. No, this is just because and I still want an explanation." He said this while rubbing the back of his head. "Partner, why must you do this to me? Abusing the power of the great to simply clothe yourself. The power of my balance breaker can keep pace with that of some of the mightiest beings in the universe. Sometimes you just break my heart, partner." Drake was almost in tears as he learned that he had been reduced to an emergency pair of pants. Issei dispelled his helmet and lifted his left arm up and gave it an annoyed glare, letting Drake know his interruption was unappreciated. Returning his attention to the beautiful still girl who was still on his bed. "Anyway, could you please tell me your name and what you're doing in my room, and if you wouldn't mind putting some clothes on?" Saying the last part caused Issei to look away and blush a bit. This caused the stranger to laugh to herself before standing up and looking Issei straight in the eyes. "Sure, I'll meet you downstairs and you can dress yourself in something that's not legendary power armor." She gave him a wink and a glowing red circle appeared under her feet and she disappeared into thin air, leaving Issei mouth agape. Issei brushed it off as just something he'd have to accept if today wasn't gonna completely break his sanity. He quickly dressed himself in his school attire. An unbuttoned white dress shirt that shows off the red undershirt he was sporting, and he paired this with black slacks. Then he rushed out of his room and into the kitchen, where he saw the mysterious yet oddly familiar girl waiting for him at his kitchen table. She was also in a school uniform, a white shirt paired with a black vest that seemed to accentuate her chest, and a miniskirt that was almost too short. "Okay, so she does go to my school." Issei was still trying to find out why this girl was so familiar. "I must know her from there, but for some reason I feel that she is important for some reason." "Alright, Mr. Haidu. What is it that you wanted to know?" the redhead asked while supporting her face with her fist, almost looking bored, which pissed Issei off. He refused to sit with her at the table and opted to stand in front of her with his arms crossed. "Well, you can start with your name, I guess." A vein was pulsing on his forehead because his patient was far past its limits. "Oh, you actually don't know who I am?" The girl looked completely shocked by his question, and at this point you could almost count the nervousness that Issei had left before he exploded. I mean, I see your little friend staring at me all the time, but then again you're usually staring off into space or messing around with your smartphone. Honestly, it's pretty infuriating that the cutest member of the perv squad is the one that never peeks. In fact, I've heard stories that Cadis from the Kendo club will occasionally spot you and your friends peeking on them changing and wait a couple seconds before telling anybody about it cause she hopes that you'll take a look at her goodies, but you just stare off into space. Poor girl. Anyway, my name is Rias Gremery, a senior and president of the Occult Research Club, but I'm also a… Oh yeah, I recognize you now. Issei interrupted Ria's explanation, sounding less than enthusiastic. The Kuo Princess, thanks to Mitsuda and Motohama, I know all your stats. B99W58H90, your best friend is Akeno Himejima, a true Japanese beauty. The true beauty comment got Issei a glare from his guest. Anyway, you're one of the smartest girls in the senior class, and the whole school is part of your fan club. I appreciate the praise, but I can assume by your tone that you might not be a member of my fan club. She said this very matter of fact, almost as if she knew what his next words were gonna be. No offense, Ms. Gremery, but there is no way anyone can be that perfect. I always figured either the rumors weren't true or you were hiding something. That vanishing trick you pulled earlier kinda confirmed the latter. Rias was nodding along with what the boy was saying, not knowing whether to feel upset that she was so easily found out or surprised by Issei's keen observation skills. Also, after our ahem encounter this morning, I can say that there is no way you're a 99B. I'd say a 96 at best, or even 95. This last comment resulted in a glowing red frying pan to the back of Issei's head, sending him to the floor. Well, jerk. There are a few things you don't know about me. Rias replied, now also standing with her arms crossed, but her eyes were closed and her head was tilted up, implying that Issei's previous comment had insulted her. Like I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by someone's comments on how I'm either a liar or don't live up to the hype. I am Rias Gremery Sr., Occult Research Club president, but I'm also a high-class devil of the Gremery and your new master. She said this while underhandedly pointing at Issei with a grin and one eye closed before a pair of bat wings erupted from her back. What? What the hell do you mean? A devil? I don't understand. Issei began to go into panic mode as he placed both hands on the sides of his head and bent over trying to gather what was going on. Please allow me to explain to my partner. Drake finally decided to speak up and help his partner understand what was going on. As a fully awakened, it's about time you learned about the supernatural. 3 major factions aside from humans are responsible for what goes on in the world today. Devils like Ms. Gremery, fallen angels like Yuma from yesterday, and angels from heaven. In order to give mankind a fighting chance against the supernatural God from the Holy Bible, placed sacred gears in random people, which is how you and I became one. I hid this from you when we first met for 2 reasons, the first being your parents had just died in front of you and I didn't want you to freak out. This piece of trivia caused Rias to gasp because she was unaware of this detail of her servant's past. The second is that I wanted you to focus on your destiny defeating Albion and his host, which admittedly was rather selfish. Back to what Ms. Gremery was saying about being your new master. High-ranking devils have the ability to reincarnate beings of other races into their numbers in a system known as peerages, and after you were killed by Yuma, Rias used a piece of hers to reincarnate you and save your life at the cost of my freedom, and in my opinion, you should be extremely grateful. Drake finished his explanation and Rias turned to face Issei. I figured it would be a shame to let a perfectly good Red Dragon Emperor go to waste, so don't worry about it. I'm happy to have you as part of my peerage. Rias said with a smile. Issei looked down at his gauntlet before making a fist. Drake is right. I truly thank you for saving my life. Issei bowed to Rias, which made her smile. However, I'm afraid I cannot join your peerage. These words immediately changed her cheerful expression into a much more serious one, but Issei continued with his reasoning. The power of thee is so vast and uncontrollable, and because of this I don't even trust myself enough to use a balance breaker in battle, and Drake talks about a power that I'm capable of that totally dwarfs that of the balance breaker. Issei's eyes remained totally locked on his gauntlet as he continued his explanation. So there is no way I can trust something so dangerous to someone I only just met this morning, in my bed, completely, but that's beside the point. Like Drake said, my destiny is to battle the vanishing dragon to the death, and Drake tells me that it could also mean my demise, so your peace would be a waste on me, as the fight I've been waiting so long for could be my end. Issei speaks of his own death as just a highly possible outcome. I mean, I heard these dragons were battle manic, but using their own lives as no more than just betting chips in their little game is just insane. Rias thought as she began to give Issei her 2 cents. I understand the thought process of growing up the Red Dragon Emperor, but unfortunately Issei, the Red Dragon Emperor, is dead. Rias said this in the most serious tone imaginable. He died when he foolishly refused to activate his balance breaker and was seduced by a rogue fallen angel. All that remains is Issei Haidu, servant of Rias Gremory. I usually like to treat my servants as people first and not tools, but I'm still a devil, and saving your life was a service, and this is the payment you owe me. I wouldn't be too happy about it, but if I had to choose between making the Red Dragon Emperor my simple plaything to do with as I please, or not having him follow me at all, then I would go with the first option. It's up to you, you can accept what life has given me, or follow me reluctantly, but for me the end result is inevitably the same. You're my Issei and that's final. Issei accompanied his new master on her walk to school, and he was clearly unhappy about the current situation he found himself in. I can't believe this smug little princess can just walk to school with that cheeky smile on her face after all that's happened. She abducts me into her devil army and breaks into my house and tells me to be thankful for it. Now she appears almost giddy at the idea of the mighty becoming her new pet. Issei was venting to himself, but his partner living in his hand could hear him loud and clear. Try to look on the bright side, partner, there are far worse fates in this world than being a servant to a beautiful member of the clan. There are a decent number of perks to being a devil, which is why so many people who jump at the opportunity to be reincarnated. For example, you as you currently stand are essentially an immortal, which gives you the opportunity to be the first host in history to completely master the boosted gear. Also being my host, your draconic aura will help to produce immensely powerful offspring, so the chances of you being married off to some beautiful high-class devil is much higher than the average standard devil, so basically you're set for life. Also, since the world of the supernatural has opened up, you will most likely have the opportunity to test your true might on strong opponents. Braig attempted to console his partner and get him to accept his new situation. Issei thought it over before responding to his partner mentally. Okay, fine, I'll try to enjoy this whole devil thing, but that doesn't mean I have to enjoy her. He glared at his new master who was swaying her hips as she strolled down the sidewalk. Just look at her, she is way too cocky. She knows she is smart, pretty, and that the whole school is in love with her. High-class devil, which means she's a rich girl, right? That certainly fits her little princess attitude. I bet she's never had to worry about a thing in her life. Issei, you're whining like a child. Quit your bitching. I'm tired of it. No wonder you don't have any friends. This comment hit Issei like an arrow, but it shut him up. Meanwhile, Rias was thinking. Ha, I totally did it, Riser is getting his ass kicked. It's super messed up, but I'm really thankful to that fallen angel chick. Actually, she stole from my precious servant, so I guess I'm neutral towards her. I'm so happy that the legendary Red Dragon Emperor, who turned out to be a total cutie, is now my servant. Sona is gonna be so jealous. My only concern is that it took all 8 pawns to revive him, but that's a small price to pay. Rias took a glimpse back at her pawn, who had his head down with his hands in his pants pocket, looking completely depressed. Unknown to Rias, his current state was caused by a comment made by the dragon living in his hand, and not the fact that she was his new master. Dang, he really does hate me. Jesus, say, get over it, you're not the only one who had a rough morning. First you refused to cuddle with me this morning after waking me up super early, then I learned that you find Akeno more attractive than me, and you said my boobs weren't as impressive as advertised. I know that they aren't 99B, but 96B is still impressive for a 17-year-old, and there is no way in hell I'm a 95B. You really need to learn how to properly treat a lady before you become boyfriend material. What really bugs me is that you said no. No boy has ever really rejected me before. I didn't want to be that mean to you, but I never expected you to say no. If you were a stupid perv like your friends, I wouldn't have to worry about finding a way to make you like me. How come it feels so weird when I look at you? I just want you to like me, idiot. Oh yeah, Issei, I guess I should tell you that you need to join the occult research club with me and the rest of my peerage, so no more going home early for you bum tea. She said that with a smile and a wink. Nailed it, there is no way he can still be mad at me. That was freaking adorable, and I know that tea melted his heart. Sure sounds fun. Issei said rather blandly while swiping at his phone. Not the answer Rias was looking for, and it kind of irritated her, but she would take it. Wait. Continued Issei. You said the occult research club was all your peerage, so that means I'll get to meet Akeno-senpai. Issei said with a slight grin, which really annoyed Rias. Yes, Issei, you'll get to spend a lot of time with Akeno, but be careful, she can get rather intense with such a cute young guy. Rias said this with a smile, but anyone who wasn't a completely dense idiot could tell that Rias was furious. Issei didn't notice her anger. If Akeno finds out that my Issei has a thing for her, then that's it, she would eat him up and never spit him back out. I can't let her know. If anyone is gonna tease him, it will be me. The two arrived at Kuo Academy and almost immediately had the attention of all their classmates. Haidu? What the hell do you think you're doing? Motohama and Mitsuda said in unison as they tackled Issei to the ground away from Rias, who simply watched the scene unfold. You never showed any interest in Rias Gremory when we would watch her in the hallway, but now we catch you walking her to school. Motohama took over the conversation as Mitsuda stood in the background nodding. "You bastard, you better have an explanation or else." The pink-haired caddis emerged from the crowd and stood over Issei, who was still on his, but after being laid out by his friends. "Yeah, Issei, what the hell is an idiot like you doing with our beloved Rias-sama? I can't accept that you two might be dating." She was shaking, which Issei took as her being angry at the thought of a loser like him being with someone she admired so much. Her body language, however, indicated that she might be more nervous than angry. Issei thought up an excuse that he thought was pretty dang good. "Geez, everyone calm down. My grandparents are loaded, remember, so I already live pretty close to Rias, and being that she is in the occult research club, she asked me when I space out occasionally if I saw ghosts or something. After that I told her that wasn't the case. I asked what they did in an occult research club. She talked the club up so much I ended up asking if I could join her club, and she agreed." Everyone seemed satisfied with this, and Caddis eventually offered Issei a hand up, which got Ria's attention. Yes, Issei is the newest member of the occult research club, and well, Rias looked away and forced a small red blush appear across her face. "I was wondering if since we're club mates now, if you wanted to start walking together regularly. If you want It was obvious to Issei that Rias was over-exaggerating having romantic feelings for him, which resulted in Caddis angrily pulling her hand away from Issei and his friends putting him back on the ground before all three of them walked away in huff. "What the hell are you doing?" Issei yelled at his master, knowing that she was putting on an act. "You're a devil now, Issei, getting involved with a human girl like Caddis is a really bad idea. Your lifespan is immensely longer than a human's now, so if you were to seriously fall for a girl like that you would definitely be in for heartbreak, so I just did you a major favor." Issei sat there and thought it over for a while before nodding in agreement. Then the two continued their journey to the old schoolhouse where the occult research would meet. "You never answered me." Rias randomly said out of seemingly nowhere. "What do you mean?" Issei was caught off guard by her question that he had no clue what it was related to. "Are we going to start walking together every morning, or not?" she said, facing away from her pawn so that he couldn't see her face. This caused Issei to blush slightly, but he quickly shook it away and answered her. "Yeah, sure, fine by me," Issei said quickly and dismissively. Which caused Rias to quickly turn to him, smiling brightly, which brought Issei's blush back twofold. "Okay, we're here, this is where the club will meet every day after, and I expect you to be there too." Issei looked up at the creepy building and felt it was fitting for an occult research club. The door opened seemingly by itself and Rias simply strolled on in. Issei was a bit more hesitant, but he followed suit. "Alright, he's here. Everyone give a warm welcome to Issei." Issei was greeted by the members of the occult research club, which was compassed by an all-star lineup of the most popular kids at Kuo Academy. Akeno Himejima, she and Rias make up the two beauties of Kuo Academy. I guess it's a mixture of the Japanese man and the breast freak in me, but her long dark hair and slightly larger chest catches my attention a bit more. Hibuyudo is a second-year student like me and the most popular guy in school, known as the Prince of Kuo. His blonde hair and blue eyes make all the ladies swoon. Koneko Taoju, a first-year student and always affectionately known as the school's mascot, Mitsuda is a big fan of hers. These guys paired with Rias Gremory, the Kuo princess, made Issei feel a bit inadequate, but he also knew his own reputation. Issei didn't have a fancy nickname because no one at school really knew what to make of him other than that he was a little off. He hung out with the perverted duo Mitsuda and Motohama, but that was really because they were the only kids in school who went out of their way to talk to him. And he was never really accused of peeping at girls because he always looked like he was lost in thought while his friends were engaging in their perverted antics. Was he exceptionally smart? No, he mostly made BS and CS, so also not an idiot. Was he super attractive? Well, not on par with Kiba, but he could get the attention of the opposite sex. His body was well-toned and muscular due to his training, so when the PE classes were assigned to swim, he got a good amount of attention. He was known as a fairly nice guy. He never shied away from helping someone if they asked for it, but he would never go out of his way to try and be nice. Mainly he was known for being distant and unresponsive. He would often be seen staring off into space, as if he was deep in thought. Teachers knew better than to call on him for answers knowing he wasn't paying attention, but he made good enough grades so they didn't really care. He was a rich kid who lived alone, and the whole school knew about him through his infamous friends, but really couldn't get a feel on him, so he didn't have a lot of friends. There was a rumor going around school that Caddis had a crush on him, but she would always refuse whenever the subject arises, so Issei dismissed it as well. Rias was right, you are a pretty cute one. The voice of a stranger awoke Issei from his own thoughts. He looked up to find a Ken extremely close to his face, and then the older woman whom he found extremely attractive was now rubbing her hand parallel down his body, starting at his chest and ending at his lower abdomen before going anywhere too sexual, causing him to wince. Very muscular and fun to tease. It's nice having such a strong man around, you'll take real good care of me, won't you? This isn't at all how Issei expected his much admired Akeno-senpai. She was much more hands-on and forceful than Issei had expected, and it was safe to say Issei was frightened and unprepared for this moment. Ahem. Rias, who had been behind the two for a considerable amount of time, finally decided to speak up. Akeno, you can play with him later. Right now we are gonna explain what devils are and how we work. Luckily the dragon living inside of him has already explained the different factions and how they work, so all we have to do is explain to him our job. Devils, in order to gain favor from humans, perform tasks and grant wishes so that they become more loyal to us as opposed to angels or fallen angels. We form bonds with these humans, and they continue to call on us for aid. That's how the system works. Issei mulled over in his mind before responding. A deal with a devil, makes sense. Rias was pleased by his answer. Unfortunately that doesn't really fit with the red dragon MO. Rias raised an eyebrow at this. Drake tells her how we do. The red gauntlet appeared on Issei's arm and the green gem began to glow as Drake spoke. Hells yeah. Death, destruction, and domination. That is the code of the Red Dragon Emperor. To refuse no challenger to fight, defeat, and kill any opponent who dares to challenge our might. Throughout the course of history, the legendary might of the Welsh dragon has caused entire civilizations to quake in fear. On the surface Issei doesn't appear that hardcore, but when push comes to shove, he has the potential to be one of the most violent forces on the face of the earth, so I have to agree with Issei in the fact that errands aren't really our forte. Man, I have the best damn hype man in the universe. Issei thought proudly to himself. Well then I guess you'll just have to adapt. Rias said with a confident smile. Say what? Drake and Issei's voices were perfectly in line as they exclaimed their shared disbelief. Yep, and you'll have a great chance to get used to these situations, because I just picked out your first job and you'll be going tonight. You're welcome. Now go get him, champ. Rias said rather sarcastically, which caused Issei to sit there with her mouth agape. Random dude's house. HMM. A random guy with glasses was shaking his hips to the music he was humming to as he pulled some popcorn out of the microwave. Today was the day I'm gonna tell Koneko-chan how I feel about her. I finally worked up the courage, and even if she rejects me, I'll just have her act out a scene from one of my favorite animes. Nothing could possibly go wrong. The lights were off, and the glasses guy was lighting a few candles for a romantic mood when he heard a knock on his door. Just a second, I'll be right there. He was scrambling to find some roses, and it was dark when he heard the second knock much louder. 1 second please. He sounded panicked, but he found the final rose and prepared himself, but it was far too late. The door busted down, and the force from that knocked the man over and blew all the candles out, and there was no light except for a strange green glow emanating from the gems and eyes on an armored draconic figure cloaked in darkness. I am Issei Haidu the Sekiryuite, what is it that you request of my power? But Issei looked down at the man who was foaming at the mouth, and then a sweet bead streamed down the side of Issei's armored head. Somewhere on some random road. So Drake, how do you think we did on our first job? Issei asked his partner while nonchalantly strolling along a road at night looking up into the stars. He was kinda talking to himself, knowing that causing a client to have a stroke is probably bad for business. Partner, I sensed the presence of fallen angels nearby. This caused Issei to immediately put his guard up and summon his sacred gear as he looked around for the impending threat. So Rainer didn't finish the job for him. I knew that there was no way she could have possibly defeated the Sekiryuite, said a man with messy black hair and a trench coat and fedora leaning against a lamppost. She was riding though, he really is a cutie. Dang kid, you really must have terrified her if Rainer elected to try and kill you before taking the time to have some fun with you first. A buxom lady also wearing a trench coat said this while putting her hand on her hip. Two fallen angels, and they talk about this Rainer as if she has encountered me before, so she must be Uma's true identity. That pisses me off that she's going around telling people she bested the mighty Sekiryuite, but she did call me cute, so I guess that's a plus. Really, she called the pipsqueak cute? I guess all I heard was her saying how weak this loser was. The male angel said as two of them sprouted their wings and prepared to finish Issei. Too weak, far too weak. Flashes of the angels insulting Issei's weakness danced in his head as flames flickered in the background until the image of Rias flashed in his mind. The Red Dragon Emperor is dead because of how foolish and weak he was. He lifted his head to reveal the glowing green iris in his eyes. Oh, looks like you touched a nerve, don't you? Oh well, let's kill him. The two began to charge him. What the hell did you call me? Issei screamed at the two who were charging him, Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. The voice sounding like Drake announced as a wave of red light surrounded the area and caused the earth to shake. Crash. A teacup hit the hard floor of the orc club as Rias sat her desk wide-eyed and filled with fear. Oh, Issei. She whispered, knowing where the frightening power was coming from. In a dark room where the only light was provided by the glow of the television. A man whose back was turned and was facing the TV sat at a couch, his face hidden from view. The man was sporting a black kimono and blonde highlights, then a close-up of the man's eyebrow revealed it to Rias as he felt this intense power. Finally, a dark church where Rainer stood slightly hunched over with her hands on both sides of her face. What the hell is this power? It's so overwhelming, but why is it so damn familiar? We finally returned to our Red Dragon Emperor as black feathers slowly drifted down in front of Issei, who was still in his balance breaker while he stared up into the night sky, completely silent as he contemplated what she just did. "I'm sorry," he said softly, seemingly to no one. Issei returned extremely late to the clubhouse where he received a proper scolding by the hand of his master and decided to go home to get absolutely no sleep. Good thing today is a day off, Issei thought to himself, feeling absolutely exhausted, but he pulled himself out of bed nonetheless. He dressed himself in street clothes which consisted of his standard red shirt, blue jeans, and a pair of black sneakers. Partner rest is extremely important, especially seeing as you used your balance breaker 3 times yesterday, which is a personal record. I understand that being a devil now gives you a greater power reserve, but that final transformation was so intense that your body has to be exhausted. Not to mention your body was still recovering from being killed by Rainer. Going out today is something I must advise against. Drake was almost begging Issei to stay home and get some rest, but the boy refused to listen. "I can't sleep right now, okay?" Issei said, getting rather short with his partner. "Geez, if it's not you then it's Rias giving me a hard time. I understand my methods might not be the healthiest, but this is how I cope. I ended 2 lives yesterday and it went a little farther than self-defense, which has me a bit messed up. I'm gonna go on a walk this morning, then when I come home I'll sleep all afternoon, I promise." It was a rather nice day out. Breezy and sunny, and Issei was having a good time. His walk was definitely making him feel a bit better. He was walking through a park that he was particularly fond of when he heard a loud thud. He rushed over to see if he could provide any assistance, and then he saw a girl who had fallen and was sticking her perfectly peach-shaped rear end in the air for all to see, only concealed by a pair of white panties. "I am, Drake. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Issei mentally asked his dragon to confirm that this was actually happening, while the boy bit his lip as he wished for a pair of sunglasses. And here I thought my partner was a breast man, but if this is what interests you now I can't say you have bad taste." Drake replied through their mental connection, confirming the quality of the booty in front of them. "I'm a breast guy all the way. Any man who can ignore such a magnificent rump hasn't a shred of masculinity in them at all, and to think you wanted to stay home and miss this. Watch out, gentleman mode activate," he thought to himself as he rushed over and helped pick the young girl back to her feet. "Thank you so much, mister." The young girl, who was sporting a hood and black robes, said with such a bright smile that the sun felt dull, and to say Issei's young heart skipped a beat would be the understatement of the century. "Can I please have your name so I may thank you more properly?" She finished with such a polite tone before a gust of wind blew the hood right off her head, which Issei rushed to recover for her, but not before revealing her long blonde hair. Issei Haidu." As the boy stumbled over his own words, all he could think was, "Damn, she's cute, too cute. Does my partner think he's finally found his empress? Cute, yes, but unfortunately she doesn't look like she'd be that into the king of domination," Drake pointed out rather matter-of-factly. "Dang, Drake, you don't need to go and say stuff like that. I already know I have absolutely no chance with this girl. I mean, look what she's wearing, obviously a nun, so her heart belongs to the church, right? Still, you can't argue that she is beautiful. I don't think I've ever met a girl who can beat her in the looks department." The scene flashed to the orc room with a stack of paper piled high on a desk. Then after quick achoo the papers were immediately knocked off the desk, revealing Rias, who was rubbing her nose. Back with Issei, who appeared to be staring off into space before the blonde girl began pulling on his shirt, which got Issei's attention, and the girl began to speak. "Excuse me, Mr. Haidu, I was wondering if you could supply me with some more assistance, pretty please." Issei blinked a few times before remembering in order to have a conversation, both parties must speak. "Of course. Just tell me what your name is and whatever I can do to help, and I'll gladly lend you a hand. I just need you to help guide me to the local church where I will be staying," she responded quickly as she immediately took advantage of the young man's aid. "As for my name, it's Asia Argento, but please if you would call me Asia." Asia Argento, Issei made a mental note of the pretty girl's name, not knowing just how important this girl would be in his life before properly guiding her to the church. Roughly 10 minutes had passed and the two youths had been getting along famously. Issei provided Asia with the information she needed to know about the area and where all the essential places she would need to know were located. In return, Asia blessed Issei with information about her life and her devotion to the faith. They would make jokes and laugh together, but through their whole exchange Issei was rather reserved and cautious because the scene felt all too familiar. Issei knew Asia wasn't like Rainer because she was a member of the church at the very least and he had Drake make sure she was human, which she checked out. He simply couldn't but feel afraid of this whole situation. Why am I so weary of Asia? She has been so kind to me and I want to get closer to her, get to know everything about her, but I can't get myself to do it. I swear if Rainer made me afraid of women, then I hate her twice as much. But I know I'm not afraid of women because I'm perfectly comfortable with Rias being near me and touching me. It's just Asia for some reason is making me feel uncomfortable like I should be afraid of something. Issei continued to contemplate what it was about Asia that frightened him when a scream alerted both of the children. A boy was bawling his eyes out over a deep scratch on his knee. Issei searched his pockets for something to bandage the wound but found nothing. Issei felt bad that he couldn't help the kid, but Asia simply walked over to the boy and placed both her hands over the gash. Big boys shouldn't cry like that. Asia attempted to comfort the boy as the twin rings on each hand began light up in an illuminating green glow. Within seconds the cut on the boy's knee began to close and heal. Issei knew what this was beyond a shadow of a doubt, Asia had a sacred gear. As the child thanked Asia and ran off to go and play, Issei remained focused on Asia and her rings. Asia felt the stare of this man whom she had met only recently and it made her feel rather uncomfortable, but she knew why Issei was staring. Please don't be mad. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about this before, but the people back at the Vatican would always call me a freak for being able to do something like this, and I didn't want you to think badly of me. Asia said, lowering her head expecting a negative response from her new friend, but none came and she slowly began to look up before widening her eyes at a sight she could never expect. Issei's hand and forearm had been replaced by a red gauntlet with a green gem on the back of Issei's hand. His fist was pointed up towards the sky to show off the gauntlet in full. Look, we're the same. Issei's words mixed with the bright smile he was giving the nun made her heart soar and she began to smile in along with the boy. The two continued to walk slowly inching closer to their destination and exchanged information on their respective sacred learning of Asia's sacred gear. There was a question lingering in Issei's mind, something important, something he needed to ask. Hey, I was just wondering, do your rings talk to you? The young girl looked up at him with confusion-filled eyes, almost as if she was questioning how sane her new guide was. And no, should they be talking to me, is that normal? She asked before looking at her rings as if they were broken. Of course not. I'm sure your rings are fine, I was just wondering is all. They both kinda stood there in an awkward silence for what seemed to be hours. Does your hand talk to you? Asia asked this in an attempt to make conversation, but also to determine whether or not Issei was actually sane. The boy nodded and summoned his gauntlet once more in an attempt to show the girl that it could talk, but no voice was there to be heard. Koneko was patient and waited a good 30 seconds, but still heard nothing. Issei glared at his hand for a while, before shaking it in an attempt to get it to speak, and when that didn't work, he proceeded to hit the object. By this point Asia was seriously questioning the boy's sanity. I'm just messing with you too. Drake finally spoke up, which caused a sweat bead to form on both Issei and Asia's heads. What's up? The name's Drake. After it was determined that Issei was not crazy, he and Asia continued their journey to the local church. Well, we're here. I'm sorry it took us long to get here, but I'm a bit new here myself. Issei said as their journey came to an end. He had a ton of fun with his new friend, but was sad nonetheless that their time together had come to an end. He didn't want to leave, but he was exhausted and was experiencing a bit of a headache for some mysterious reason. Yeah, it was fun. Thank you so much, Issei-san. Asia thanked him with a smile, but was also sad the experience was at its end. Issei turned to leave, but Asia knew she didn't like the idea of Issei leaving for good, so she decided to speak up one last time. Wait please. I just wanted to say I had a great time. She had said this last part much too fast for Issei to comprehend, and she could tell by his confused expression. What I meant to say was it would be really nice to do this again sometime. Okay, bye. She ran off towards the church, obviously embarrassed, which Issei found absolutely adorable. Yeah, sounds like a blast, Asia. Issei said to himself as the girl was already at least 100 feet away. Issei quickly turned around. Alright Greg, I'm exhausted, let's head home. His words were cut short as his vision faded and his body hit the ground. A few hours later. Issei was awakened by inaudible words from a voice that sounded extremely familiar. When his vision cleared it, he saw Rias standing above him looking far too unhappy. Wake up, idiot. She said very coldly, her vicious stare unyielding. I should have left you on the cold street earlier with all the trouble you've been causing me. She continued as Issei took his surroundings in, discovering he was in his own home, with his master straddling his lap. Geez, I was ready to start a war when I found you passed out on the street in front of a church after spending your afternoon with a member of the church, no less. Luckily Drake explained to me that you were simply passed out due to exhaustion. I swear it, if you can't be responsible you'll have to spend your days off shopping with me, or else the next thing you know you could go get yourself engaged to a seraph. Issei knew he must have worried Rias to death and he felt bad about that, but he was exhausted. I'm really sorry Rias, but can you please punish me later, I'm so tired. Rias could see that her servant was struggling to remain conscious and gave in to his demands. I guess there is no helping it, but tomorrow you'll be in. She stopped when she realized Issei had already closed his eyes and was no longer there to listen. His punishment is so gonna be doubled for falling asleep on me. Rias thought as she prepared to remove herself from his bed, but the unconscious Issei had a different idea. Issei in his sleep rolled to his right, which caused Rias to lose her balance and fall to the boy's right, and then Issei's left hand came in, trapping the girl in his bed. What the heck just happened? Rias attempted to wiggle her way free before realizing how comfortable she now was. Well, it is already late, so I guess I'm staying the night. The next day. She played with Issei's hair a bit while she stared at his sleeping face. I guess sharing his bed is punishment enough for such a cure servant. Who would have guessed the red dragon of domination would be a cuddler? She thought as she giggled to herself. As Issei awoke the next morning to his master's face lying against his chest. I guess all it takes to chase the nightmares away is a beautiful girl in your bed. Huh, she snores. I guess nobody's perfect. Issei, who was afraid to move at this point, simply watched a peaceful girl sleep. A small blush crept onto his face. Dang, even her snoring is adorable. What is she thinking climbing in here at night? What if I actually tried something? Issei summoned his gauntlet to try to take his mind off of Rias. Drake, how charged are we? About 62%, even after 14 hours of sleeping you used so much energy. Maybe next time you listen to your magical dragon friend who is psychically connected to you when he tells you a walk isn't the best idea. Drake's answer was heard only in Issei's head, and the dragon sounded disappointed in Issei's rash decision-making, but still concerned for his partner's well-being. Yeah, I was pretty dumb yesterday. Issei knew Drake was usually right and that it's best to just agree with him. But if I stayed at home I'd have never met Asia, which would have sucked. She was so nice to me and so beautiful. I can't get her out of my head. Issei was thinking of his new friend when Ria's eyes slowly blinked open. The young lady sat up on top of Issei. As the blanket fell off her body, it revealed that she was without clothing. Issei's face lit up a bright red and quickly averted his gaze, which caused Rias to grin. Have you not heard of pajamas? I hear they're all the rage these days. Issei yelled with his eyes firmly shut. Oh, I thought you already knew I was. I mean the places you were touching last night, I was sure you knew what you were doing. Ria's comments caused Issei's eyes shoot wide open, wondering what he did to his master last night. Anyway, there was something I was gonna tell you about before you rudely fell asleep on me. Rias had gotten out of bed and began to dress herself as Issei sat patiently waiting on his bed for what Rias was going to tell him. Meet us outside the clubhouse tonight. We have a mission. At night. After meeting the orc at the clubhouse, the Rias and her peerage made their way to an abandoned building not too far from campus. So this stray devil is like a rogue, right? Issei asked, looking at the building before the group entered. That's basically it. Akeno was the first to answer while smiling brightly. A stray devil is a servant devil who decides to kill their master for a shot at freedom. This rarely works, and most of the time people like us are sent to deal with them. The thought of fighting a devil strong enough to kill its master got Issei excited. Yeah, I'm hyped. Let's do this. Issei said, summoning his gauntlet. After taking most of the day off, his energy reserve has reached about 78%. Not today, Issei. You're gonna watch. Rias said this with a serious expression, and Issei knew there was no changing her mind when he was like this, which caused Issei to slump into depression. Don't be like that. I want you to watch my peerage work and see how they work so you can know where you fit in. There will be other times for fighting, I promise. She was in her hardcore mode, as Issei dubbed it, which Issei wasn't that fond of. The group entered the building and everyone took a battle stance except for Issei, who was still pointing a bit. The smell of death had filled the air and the entire orc knew they were about to have a fight on their hands. From a corner of the room, a creature with the torso of a beautiful woman but a monstrous insect-like body with a gaping spike-filled jaw on her abdomen crawled out. Her appearance caused Issei to flinch a bit in disgust, but his master didn't lose her composure at all, and her unwavering stoic appearance inspired Issei to quickly gather himself. Well. If it isn't the little Grimoire slut and her pathetic peerage. I'm glad they decided to send you. I'm not gonna need to go out looking for another snack. The revolting creature began to laugh as she prepared to take on the orc. Stray devil visor. By the name of the noble clan Grimoire, I shall make you pay for your crimes. Rias announced to the monster before looking back at Issei. We can easily dispose of this creature, so you can just watch. Got it. I nodded to her without pouting, and she turned back to face the foe before lifting her finger to point at visor. Kiba. Now. After Rias gave the order, Kiba drew his sword and rushed towards the monster at blazing speeds, almost too fast for Issei to see. "Kiba is my knight," Rias said, narrating over their battle. The knight's defining attribute is amazing speed, as you can clearly see. They specialize in fast deadly strikes. Kiba was rapidly dealing small blows to Visor, but his sword was having trouble penetrating Visor's insect-like armor. "Koneko, you're up." Rias directed Koneko to attack the monster, but Issei could only look on in horror as the small girl jumped into Visor's giant mouth. "Relax, Issei. Koneko is a rook, and the rook is especially strong," Rias explained, trying to waive Issei's concerns as Koneko spun her small body around inside the monster's mouth, breaking all of its teeth and severely damaging it. The small silver-haired girl backflipped away from the monster as Akeno, who was dressed in shrine maiden attire, began to levitate herself and prepare for battle. "Akeno, you know what to do." Rias gave her the okay, and the black-haired girl began to laugh maniacally. "Akeno is my queen as well as the strongest piece in my peerage. She uses an extremely powerful magical lightning to wipe out all who oppose her." Issei looked up to see Akeno's face full of glee as she zapped the life out of the monster. She's also a total sadist, which means she probably having the time of her life right now. Issei was enjoying watching his fellow devils at work when something caught his eye. One of Visor's many sharp limbs had made its way dangerously close to Rias and was getting ready to strike. Issei knew he had to do something, but was too far to grab the thing. Issei summoned his gauntlet, hoping a boost would give him the speed to block the attack, but that wouldn't be necessary. As he held out his dragon arm, a red ball of energy formed at the end of his hand. "Dragon shot," Issei's gauntlet announced as the energy left his hand and vaporized the monster's limb. Issei was utterly shocked by this power he had just demonstrated for the first time, but he thought it was badass. He quickly stuck out his thumb and blew at the end of his pointer finger, as if it was a gun. Rias, who was about to thank her servant for saving her life, but decided against it after observing this goofy display. Instead, she gathered a red energy into her fingertips and decided to end things there. "Alright, I had enough of this. Time for you to die." Rias released the energy in the form of multiple beams that struck Visor in random spots, which completely wiped her from the face of the earth. Thus is the true power of destruction. The group began to walk home from the old warehouse when Issei started wondering about his role in the peerage. "Well, I'm not any stronger or faster physically, and I'm not the queen. All the pieces are based on those in chest, right?" Issei thought to himself before his head popped up and one could almost see a light bulb float above his head. "I'm the pawn, right?" he said rather loudly as his eyes were fixated on Rias. She smiled at her clever little servant before giving him a quick nod. "The pawn, huh? Awesome," Issei said to himself with a goofy grin, which got the attention of his master. "You seem pretty excited. The pawn is usually considered the weakest piece in chess, yet you seem rather enthusiastic about it," Rias asked with her hand on her chin as if she was thinking about something. "Yeah, I love it. Who doesn't want to root for the underdog, right?" Issei said as he looked up into the night sky as he imagined all the intense fights it would take to reach the top of the devil community. Unbeknownst to him, his master was staring at the boy with a rather deep blush sprawled across her face. "Rias, get back," Kiba shouted to his master as he took up his blade in a defensive stance. "Issei, please stand down, we're friends, remember, we don't have to fight." Kiba tried to remain level-headed in his plea, but his knees began to wobble and his hands began to tense up. He had every reason to be afraid as he attempted to stare down Issei, who was cloaked in darkness, but his green eyes and the gems of his armor made for a terrifying appearance that radiated power. As his nerves finally got to him, Kiba began to charge his foe, not wanting to get the Sekiryu a chance to strike first. However, as he raised his blade to deliver a powerful blow, one of Issei's blood-red gauntlets reached out and grabbed the sword, and his strong grip caused the weapon to shatter. Issei's other hand shot a powerful punch into the blonde boy's stomach, causing him to fly through a wall at the other side of the room, which was followed by a red energy blast, causing a massive explosion through the hole Kiba's body created. "Kiba!" Rias screamed for her knight, but there was no answer. Akeno continued to pull on Ria's arm, urging her to keep moving as she stared in terror at their former friend, who silently stared in their direction, oozing with killing intent. Koneko somersaulted forward and took up a battle stance in an attempt to slow the monster down. Issei, however, was getting sick of the distractions. "Jet!" Issei's boosted gear announced as the spikes on his back opened up, releasing green energy that hurled the boy forward at tremendous speeds, which he used to grab the small girl's head before she had a chance to react. Issei held the girl up by the head and began to close his fist. Koneko began kicking and clawing at Issei in an attempt to get him to let go, but it was fruitless, and within seconds her head popped. Issei dropped her lifeless body to the ground as blood poured from her headless neck. "Stop!" Akeno screamed with tears in her eyes, shooting massive amounts of lightning at the murderous Issei. "Boost! Boost! Boost! Boost!" Boost. Explosion. After gathering the appropriate power, Issei released a wave of red energy that knocked away the lightning before the force of the energy knocked Koneko to the floor and rendered her unconscious. Issei walked up to the girl and picked her up by the and charged a ball of energy on the end of his other fist, which he held closely to the girl's head. Dragon shot. With that, Issei left another headless corpse on his killing spree. Rias was finally cornered at the end of a long hallway, and Issei came face to face with her before he erupted with energy. His armor sprouted gruesome bone-like wings covered with more green gems, his gauntlets began to rip apart and revealed dragon-like talons with spike on the top, and his feet grew in size and became more reptilian. Finally, his head shot out from his body with an elongated neck, and his head grew more fearsome tusks and a dragon-like maw. The appearance of her former pawn caused Rias to scream in fright. Aya. This shot up in his bed after having the mother of all nightmares. Dragon's madness. Issei said to himself with his head in one of his hands. Unfortunately. It's true that a number of past hosts have given in to the temptations of my power and went on massive killing sprees, which in some cases included those closest to them. I wouldn't worry too much, you've already had my power 10 years. If you were gonna go crazy, you most likely would have done so at this point. Drake's words of consolement did little to ease Issei's psyche. But ever since I achieved Balance Breaker, I've been getting so much stronger so quickly. What if one day it becomes too much for me to handle? And those fallen angels, I couldn't stop myself that time. Issei reminisced about the night he murdered Kalawiner and Donaseek. Drake didn't say anything because Issei's question was one he didn't have an answer to. Drake, the monster from the end of my dream, that was the yes partner, that was Juggernaut Drive, and I hate to tell you this, but since becoming a devil your body has the power necessary to fuel that form. Drake's voice sounded rather depressed because he knew that as soon as there was fuel there would eventually be fire. Yeah, I know. Issei said in a self-loathing tone as he looked down at his hands in his lap, but he was eventually awoken from his depressed state by a ding-dong. Issei looked up at the clock, confused at who would be at his door at this hour, but then Issei realized it was 7:30. Crap. Issei yelled, running to the door. Issei opened the door to reveal his master. Her crimson hair danced in the breeze, and the eyes rumored to steal men's hearts met Issei's dead on. Issei didn't seem too impressed after spending weeks with her and Koneko. He was almost desensitized to beautiful women, and his eyes looked rather tired. You know, if you gave me a key I would be able to wake you up on time. She said, giggling as Issei was still in his underwear. Like you need one. You can teleport in here if you really wanted to. Issei said rather crankily as he held the door open so that Rias could enter his home. Also, if you wanted to teach me that magical clothing spell, that would be super great. He said as he walked out of his living room into his bedroom to get dressed. Sure. Rias replied with a smile. Only if you're okay with ending up in a skirt. She didn't get a reply from her pawn. A few minutes later, Issei returned from his room wearing his standard Kuo uniform, but today he included his black overcoat, taking into account the breeze that elegantly moved Ria's hair earlier. Alright, let's go. Issei said with a bored look in his eyes. It's not that Issei disliked the company of his king. As a matter of fact, the morning walks he had with her were one of the highlights of his school days. Rias would tell him everything he needed to know about devil history, culture, and customs. In return, Issei would tell his master stories about his life. She knew about the loss of Issei's parents and how Issei met Drake. Issei told her how at his older schools he didn't have any friends, so he usually talked to Drake, and that when he would stare off into space during class he wasn't having deep thoughts, but instead talking to his best friend. She also knew about the time with the fallen angels and how that was the first time he'd ever ended another creature's life. Rias wanted to know everything about her precious pawn, and Issei never felt uncomfortable telling her about his life. In some cases it made him feel better to talk about the considerably rough life he had as a child. It was safe to say that Issei was no longer upset at Rias for changing him into a devil without his permission, and if anything he was glad about it. He'd never had so many friends before he was part of the orc. Issei was rather distant after the nightmare he had last night, and Rias had taken full notice of this. So when do you plan on telling me what's bothering you today? Rias said with demanding eyes and her hands on her hips, expecting her pawn to answer her, but he doesn't. The boy just continues his walk to class as if he hadn't heard her. Issei. She yells at her pawn, making sure to get his attention. Oh, it's nothing, Rias. I just had a nightmare, that's all. Issei answered honestly, knowing that his master would be able to tell if he was lying. After receiving her answer, she softened her gaze and quickly jogged to catch up with the boy. About what? She asked, now walking beside the boy. Instead of answering, Issei simply gave her a look that begged her not to press the issue. Fine, I won't force you to say anything you don't want to, but as punishment for keeping secrets. She quickly got into Issei's personal space and then slipped her hand into his, intertwining their fingers. You're gonna have to hold my hand the whole way to school. Later that day. The lunch bell rang at Kuo Academy and all the students were all released from their morning classes. Okay, so you're still gonna deny it? Cadis asked Issei as the two of them took a seat at the same lunch table. Cadis, and for like the 98th time, I'm not dating Rias Gremory, Issei said rather loudly as he mulled over whatever the school decided to serve for lunch, feeling rather jealous of Cadis's homemade lunch. Okay, I get it. I believe you, but a little piece of advice if you want anyone else to believe you. Don't walk her to school every day, and if you have to walk her to school, don't show up holding hands. She got a bit louder towards the end of the statement. Then her face turned a slight tinge of red. Also, what's this Cadis and crap about I'm your best friend? Drop the stupid honorific, okay? Issei chuckled a bit at her advice. I'll try to keep that in mind, Cadis. He told her, making sure to emphasize saying her name without the honorific, which caused her to jump a bit. Issei, this is no laughing matter, Issei, these rumors are getting out of control. I heard one about how your wealthy relatives arranged your marriage when you two were much younger and how you forgot about it, but she has kept in mind for years, which is why she never had a boyfriend. Issei couldn't help but feel like he had heard that set up somewhere else before, but before he could figure out where, Cadis continued. Anyway, these rumors are the reason the two perverts disowned you and you don't have any friends. I do have friends, he said in self-defense. I mean, you just said you were my best friend and Kiba's my friend. Yeah, I'm your friend, so what caused you to bring it up? The blonde boy said as he pulled up a seat to their table. We were just talking about how no boy in school, except for you, will talk to Issei because of the rumors about him and Rias. Cadis explained with a blank expression as if what she was saying was common knowledge. Oh yeah, that. I get it now. Kiba's words confirmed the fact that it was indeed common knowledge. I know that, but you can be rather affectionate, but with you, Issei, she seems beyond even that. Maybe she does have a thing for you. Nah. Issei said, looking down at his phone. I feel like I would know if she liked me. I mean, it's not like I'm some dense idiot, right? He looked up to get a response from his friends, knowing that they would agree. That wasn't the case. Instead, he received wide-eyed, open-mouthed stares from his friends, almost as if they couldn't believe what he had just said. Ring ring. The lunch bell rang and students began to clear of their tables and go to class. Before Issei had the chance to stand up, Kiba stood up and spoke to him. Remember, Butchu wants us to meet at the club room today after school. Issei nodded to Kiba and the three teenagers went their separate ways. After school. Okay everyone, Issei is going to explain his abilities and how they work. Rias was standing at the head of a coffee table in the middle of the club room with couches on each side of the table that sat her peerage. She then turned to look at Issei and smiled. Alright. You're up. Issei stood up from his spot, then made his way to the end of the table opposite of Rias. Yeah. During the fight against Visor, I got to see all of your powers, but none of you know what I can really do yet. Issei explained as he summoned his Crimson Gauntlet. This is the base form of the boosted gear, my standard gauntlet. In this state, it boosts my base power every 10 seconds and I can transfer that energy to other people or objects. Issei held up the solid red gauntlet with the green gem and golden spikes. Second liberation. The gauntlet grew in length and erupted in more golden spikes, and a second green gem appeared at the end of the gauntlet near Issei's elbow. This is the next level of the boosted gear, second liberation or boosted gear gift. In this state, the boosts I receive are much stronger, but I can't activate this form off the bat. I have to have some energy stored up before I can reach this form, so I never use it. The next transformation is my favorite. Issei held his gauntlet parallel to his chest, and the green jewel flashed. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. The voice coming from Issei's gauntlet rang as red energy filled the room. When the bright red light finally dissipated, it revealed Issei cloaked in his armor. This is the legendary Scale Mail. The balance breaker of a Longinus level sacred gear that takes the form of an armor that resembles the Welsh dragon itself, but you can see that for yourselves. Issei realized that he was over-explaining things and felt a bit embarrassed. Sorry, that's just the spiel Drake gave me my first time using the armor, I guess I should explain what it does, right? The embarrassed voice coming from the hulking draconic monster made the whole orc chuckle, with the exception of Koneko, who sat there blankly. Issei quickly regained his composure and resumed his speech. Along with give me a massive amount of power, this armor basically takes what the boosted gear does and put it on steroids. There really isn't a time limit between boosts, I just kind of want to have more energy and the armor will give me a boost. Boost. All of the green gems on the armor lit up and Issei surged with energy. I unlocked my balance breaker a little over a year ago, and as I am now, I can hold the armor for about 2 hours. Issei dispelled his armor and returned to his normal state. The boosted gear is fueled partial by strong emotions. In fits of rage, fear, or sorrow, my power can grow exponentially. Drake once told me that the power of the boosted gear was like a fire, and a strong body was like good sticks, the power would burn hot and steadily, but powerful emotion were like gasoline that could exponentially boost your power for a short time. After Issei explained his powers, the Orcus missed and Issei and Rias began to walk home together. Something had been on the young girl's mind and she finally decided to speak up on it. "Hey Issei, there is something important I have to tell you." Issei immediately turned around, letting his master know she had his attention. "You see, you aren't always going to be my servant. Someday you will have a peerage of your own, and you will probably be a high-class devil someday because of how powerful you are. My question is, when that happens, what do you want to do with your life?" Her question caused Issei to think for a bit. "Once upon a time my only goal in life was to fight the vanishing dragon and hopefully win, but now I have thousands of years of life to live. Well, I don't know about being a high-class devil or having a peerage or anything like that, but I do know what I want to do with my life." Issei looked down at his gauntlet before looking up at his master. "I still want to fight the vanishing dragon, but I'm more determined than ever to win, so that I can live out the rest of my days fulfilling my dream. I want to be the first host in history to unlock the secrets of the boosted gear. To be the strongest red dragon in history, that's my dream." Issei gave his master a proud smile, confident that he would make his dream come true. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the JCT1345 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.